All right, so thank you everyone for coming. This presentation is Getting Started in Materials Development. The presenters are Brian Cullen and Niall Walsh. Please begin.
Hi.
Thank you, Stephanie, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for coming along to the presentation. Today, I'm Brian, and today our topic is Getting Started in Materials Development. And over there we have Niall. So Niall, can we go on to the next one?
Yes, I'm Niall. Oops. Yes.
So this is a workshop. It's quite short. It's only 25 minutes. So we're not going to get a huge amount done, but be ready to work. Have a pencil and paper or a computer. You're probably on a computer. So just somewhere you can take notes and do a little bit of work. So today, very briefly, we're going to introduce a framework, a materials development framework that was put forward by Jolly and Belito. Can you show the steps now?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Right.
Yeah, just show them all there. So we have 7 steps. And Jolly and Belito put this together based on their own experience as a way for us to conceptualize and to carry out materials development in a practical way. Now, I've been involved in materials development for probably 25 years. And I find this very useful. It's a good way of getting an overview of the whole process. And it's not a linear process. It's laid out in 7 linear steps. But as we'll see, and as you probably know, it's not really linear. The first step is identifying a need. So for example, if you're in the classroom and you realize that your students are making mistakes in the past tense, or they don't have the vocabulary to prepare them for their overseas trip, whatever the need is, or it could be on a wider scale where you've been asked to write a textbook for a particular need by a publisher. So the next thing is to explore the language. And we can explore the language in terms of the grammar required, in terms of the functions, notions, in terms of genre, and in terms of vocabulary. So we want to identify what kind of language are students going to need. And then the third step is contextual realization. Language doesn't take place in a vacuum. We need a context. So, for example, you might decide if they need to do overseas study, then you might decide to set up a series of role plays, and you might teach the language through that. Step 4 flows out of that. It's what we call the pedagogical realization. It's the actual creation of the tasks as we move from a context into creating activities, learning activities, through which students will learn and practice the required language. Then step 5 is the physical production, which could be just you copying some prints that you've made, giving them out to your students. It could be creating videos, it could be creating a whole textbook, it could be creating audio. Then step 6, very important, using it in the classroom. All materials are wonderful until they meet reality in the classroom. And when students use the materials, you'll find, and I have found this so many times, that they don't work as well or in the same way that you expected. So you get a lot of feedback there. Step 7 is evaluation of the materials, looking at the materials and going back to step 1 and considering, have they fulfilled the need? And as you can see from the diagram on the right, this is not a linear process. We're jumping around from step to step. So rather than a cookbook, rather than a step-by-step approach, it's good to think of this as a way to conceptualize and to experience the whole process of material writing. So Niall is going to give you a practical example of that.
Thanks, Brian, for that. Yes, as Brian said, there's a 7-step process to Jolly and Belito's framework. And as educators, we're limited for time with materials development, but it is very important, I think, as educators that we do look at our context and try and follow this process as much as possible, adhere to it. So I'm going to share an example with you of one that I did a couple of years ago that was very successful for me. A couple of years ago, I worked in a school for returnee students in Nagoya. And as part of the students who I taught had a very high level of English proficiency because they had lived overseas for an extended period of time. And when they came back to Japan, they entered our school. And a lot of these students wanted to go on and continue their English studies in prestigious universities in Japan and overseas. And part of the process for entering these universities, students had to take an entrance examination, an interview examination. And feedback from the students who had taken these examinations in previous years gave me my identification of a need. So listening to those students, they told me that at the interview, they were asked questions about things that are happening in the world around them. So for example, if it was this year, they might be asked about the coronavirus or COVID-19. Yes, in previous years was gender issues. So this gave me this identified my need for the students. Because the students, the feedback from them said that they weren't prepared for these interview questions. So I decided, all right, let's focus on that. So students need to critically evaluate and express their opinions on issues facing the world. So that was my need. Then we had exploration of language. So what language did the students need to do this? I didn't teach language explicitly because these students, as I said, had a high level of proficiency. But I did focus on discussions in class on topics surrounding these areas, for example, gender issues, environment, and so on. So we did spend time in class doing that. Contextual realization. So how can we replicate this situation where students have to discuss things of a global nature and analyze and exchange opinions with each other? Yeah. So I wanted to contextualize this and have a discussion that will simulate this atmosphere. Yes. So maybe talking about issues, not just in Japan, but of course in the US, in Europe, around the world. So this is my contextual realization, to have this context, replicate this in my classroom. Pedagogical realization, how to do this. It was actually timely because at that time there was a G7 summit happening, I think it was a couple of years ago, maybe in Canada that year. And so I decided to replicate that for students. So we simulated a G7 summit in the class where each student was assigned a leader of a different country. And they were given time, of course, to research that country's policies on different things that were being discussed that year. And also they had to research another country's policies too and prepare questions for the other students in the class and to ask those. So this is my pedagogical realization, to have this in-class activity where students discuss things that are happening in the world around them. Physical production. I did produce some instruction. It was very limited, the amount of instruction I gave the students. It was mostly done verbally because these students are very independent. They could do research on their own. If you have lower level students, you would need to scaffold a lot more, I think, with different language structures for this. But I did prepare some preparation sheets. In the class, I prepared, here's my engagement sheet that I gave the students of the themes of that year's summit. I also showed students pictures of the leaders at that time, just to contextualize for the students who they were and just to give it some realism to it. So I did produce this. Also in class, I produced, I prepared flags for the students. So I actually structured the classroom. I set it up in such a way that it was a roundtable discussion. So I made flags and nameplates and all of these things for the students. Use in classroom, as I said, we had a roundtable discussion, starting with a brief speech by students, followed by questions and answers, and ending with the students' opinion on the issue. And then evaluation of the materials. This was conducted at three points. So pre-activity, I discussed with my other co-workers in the school that I worked at that time, whether this material is suitable and would it be too difficult or should we change it a bit. Also whilst use, so I did position myself as the moderator in the discussion. So I felt that was a good way for me to listen to the students in a non-threatening way, and I could prompt students more for their opinions too. So I evaluated there. And post activity, so after we finished, I distributed a questionnaire to students to get feedback from them, which was positive. So, and there were some comments on, for example, the teacher, maybe we need more time to talk, or I need more time to prepare. So that was also conducted as well. So evaluation was conducted at 3 points. Yeah. So this is my example from working in my context with returnee students. Whoops.
Sorry about that, I was muted. Thank you, Niall. That was that's a very interesting example. It's quite different from my situation. Everybody's situation is going to be a little different. Can we go on to the next slide now?
Yes, Brian.
So as we said at the beginning, this is a workshop, and we finish at 12:20. So we have about 19 minutes left, I think. Something like that. We're going to give you guys 8 minutes. So you're going to get started, get out your pen and paper, or on your computer is fine. Think of your situation, identify a need that your students have, explore the language, think of the context, and we're just going to do the first 4 steps. So we're going to give you guys 8 minutes. This is a workshop. We'll be here. If you have any questions, you can send it on the chat. But the point here is to just get down and start doing it. Material design is practical. So you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Nope, that's not working.
Oh, we just have one question in the chat to show the slide. I think.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay, thanks.
You have about 4 minutes. You have about 20 seconds. Okay, that's our time. We hope everybody has had a productive 8 minutes. Niall, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay, thanks, Brian. As Brian said, hopefully you could come up with some ideas there for your own teaching context. But we would like now for you to share your ideas with someone else in the workshop this morning. So we're going to put you into breakout rooms of pairs, just for a few minutes to share what you've written down and your thoughts on this process. So I think we're ready to put you into breakout rooms for about 5 minutes. We might go just 1 or 2 minutes over, guys. I apologize if we do, but let's do that now. So I think, all right. So if you can join the breakout room, please.
So, welcome back, everybody. We hope you had a good breakout room session. We are pretty much out of time. We hope that everybody had a chance to go through it, to think about your situation. Materials development is a very practical process. Can we go to the last slide now? Continuing on from here, because this, as we saw in the initial diagram, this is not a linear process. You might have started here, you might do a little, then you have to go back to the beginning, check your need again. You go into the classroom, you find out that they don't work, you go back. So it's not a linear process. We're very happy to look at materials and give feedback. I run a small publishing company. I love material design. We also have a questionnaire. We'd love if you can just take a few minutes and answer these questions. There's a QR code or there's a URL there. And it's just a few short questions which will really help us, and we'd appreciate it. And if you'd like to share your materials with us by email, we'd love to see them, and we're very happy to give feedback. And Niall, is there anything you'd like to add to all that?
Just not so much, Brian, but I know we're over time there, so I'll just be brief. But thanks for joining our workshop this morning. Apologies that it was kind of rushed, but we only had 25 minutes for that. As Brian said, if you do want to share your ideas or ask us questions, we are here to help you. We understand the materials development is tough, yeah, and I was talking to someone in a breakout room there, and it's very hard to think of materials that are appropriate for the students. But I find if you can bounce ideas off different people, then we can all share materials and we can learn from each other. So please do feel free to contact us if you have any ideas or you have any questions about materials development. And as Brian said, if you can take some time to fill out this form, this questionnaire about materials development, we would greatly appreciate it.
Can you put that in the chat, the form address in the chat, please?
Yep, we will do that. We hope everybody was able to get started. Even if you've had lots of experience in material development, we hope it allowed you to get started again. And we look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Niall. And participants, if you'd like to unmute your microphones, or you can select the applause button in the participant list. Let's give our presenters a round of applause.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, and I hope that you can enjoy the rest of the conference.